In this lecture, we'll conclude our discussion on Excel by looking at some more advanced features that we can use for manipulating data.
Another neat feature in Excel is conditional formatting. And what this does is we can actually apply specific formats that would show up automatically to our cells whenever they contain specific values. So like if a value becomes a certain number, or if it becomes greater than a certain number, or if it's the largest among a set, we can actually have our cells formatted automatically whenever these change happens. Now to find this, you would go to the Home tab, and then under the Styles group, there is this conditional formatting option. So over on the right, I have a diagram that kind of shows this. It would be this button right here that's selected, and you would get this drop-down menu of different options, such as the highlight cell rules, top-bottom rules, data bars, color scales, icon sets, and so forth. And we'll talk about each of these in more detail. For the highlight cell rules, we're basically formatting the cells based on different comparisons, so we can compare them by values. So we can say, like, for example, if the value of that cell is greater than 50, we can make the text green. Or if it's less than 25, we can make the background red. We can apply those types of rules. We can even format text to see if it contains specific letters or specific dates or even duplicate values. So it's not even necessarily the case that we're just comparing values, but we can also check to see if certain letters exist in the text in there. For the top-bottom rules, we're basically doing formatting based on the top or bottom 10 items or 10% items. So like you may have a list of values, and we can highlight the top 10 items of this list, or even the top 10% items of this list. We can even do the bottom 10 items or the bottom 10%. And it doesn't even have to be the 10 items or 10%. There's an option where we can customize that, where we can say maybe like top 5 items instead, or the bottom 3% or something like that. But the whole point here is that we're just formatting based on what's considered the top so many items or the bottom so many items. We can even do formatting based on values that are above or below an average. So we can get the average of the list of items, and you can apply formatting rules for those cells that are either above or below that average. We also have the data bars option, and these are what we consider gradient horizontal bars. So these would appear in the background of the selected cell range. And what this does is it gives us a visualization of how large a value of that cell is compared to the other values in this range. So the larger the value compared to the other values in this set, the longer the horizontal bar is going to be. And the smaller the value, the shorter the bar is. So the idea is you can kind of just quickly glance over these horizontal bars, and you can quickly tell which ones are the smaller values and which ones are the larger values. We have a couple of other options. We have the color scales, which means we can have a couple colors that are in the background of our cells, and they change based on the values. So like, for example, larger values would be one color, and then we can have smaller values head towards a different color, so you can actually kind of see the change from one color to another. Now we can use gradations of 2 colors or even 3 colors, so you can have a third color be like middle type values. And then we also have icon sets, where we can use icons to indicate the values. And these are just used to be able to clearly see values. So like in this case, you would have a small icon appear on the far right side of each of the cells. And usually they're in groups of 3. So like 1/3 of the icons would be the lower third values in that set. Another icon will represent the middle third values, and then another icon will be used for the largest third values. Now let's say you applied some rules and you don't like it and you want to get rid of them. The way you would do this is you would select the range of cells that you want to clear the formatting from, and then you would just go to the conditional formatting, click select clear rules, and then you just choose the selected cells. Now it could also involve a table, so if you have a table you can actually choose a couple options. You can either say choose the selected cells, you can choose either this table or this pivot table. Now we haven't talked about pivot tables yet, but we'll get to that in just a minute. But the whole point here is that we can select the cells that we want to clear formatting from by just clicking on the clear rules from the conditional formatting option. We can even create our own formatting rules if we don't like the preset options that we're given. So we would just need to select our range of cells, and then under the conditional formatting option, we would select manage. And this will create a new pop-up box for us, and from there we can select a new rule. So then we can just simply set the rule that we want, and then we can go to the edit the rule description option to actually change it. Now, most of these rules are going to be very similar to the preset options that we had. The only difference now is instead of like a fixed 10% or top 10 items or so forth, you can actually choose the values that you want. You can choose the different types of comparisons. So there's a bit more flexibility with what you actually want your values to have. And you can even put in your own formulas as well. So you can compute some type of formula, and depending on that result, you would have some type of conditional formatting rule.
All right, so let's do an example, or at least a couple of examples of conditional formatting, just to kind of show you how this works. So let's say in A2, actually I'm going to move over to B2. I'm going to put the value 25 in here. And I'm going to do some conditional formatting rules for this. So under the Home tab, over conditional formatting, we can try something out here. So let's do highlight cell rules. So I could put in greater than, and let's say if it's greater than 20, then we're going to fill this with green fill with dark green text. So we'll click OK. And sure enough, green fill, dark green text. I can put an additional rule in here. I can say a less than rule. So if the value in here is less than maybe 10, we'll do a light red fill with dark red text. So we can do that. So that means now if I change the values, so if I do something like 5, it's now red with red fill with dark red text. If I put something between, there's nothing there. So we have some rules that are associated with it. In fact, if we go in here and go into manage rules, we can even see these actual rules. And I can add new rules in here if I wanted to. So we can do something like cells that contain something between 10 and 20, and we can change the format. So we can do something, let's try out some stuff here. We can do colors, so maybe make it blue. We can bold it. No, we won't do a strike through. We could do underline. We can do a fill. We can do yellow fill. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So we can do something like that. We'll click OK. So there's another rule that we can have here. We'll apply it right there. So there we go. So we can even do something like this, where we can add our own rules to it. All right, so let's try another example. Let's do something like this. So we have some other options here. So let me select this entire range, and we can go to conditional formatting, and we can pick some of the groups down here. So I can do something like data bars. So we can do something like a gradient fill. I usually like this one very well compared to like solid fill. So we can actually see something where we have bars in the behind the scenes, and the larger the number, the larger the bar. So we see here 10 has the larger bar, 1 has the smaller bar. So we can do that. We can do color scales. Actually, let's clear the rules here. And let's try color scales just to kind of show you. So we have a green, yellow, red color scale. Green, yellow, yellow, green. We'll do green, yellow, red. So here we have 3 different colors where the smaller values are red and the larger values are green. Middle values are yellow, and we can kind of see the color shades changing. So from red we go to yellow, then we go to green. So we can do that. Let's do one more example here. So we can clear this. So we click on clear rules from selected cells. And then we can do like icons. It's pretty neat. So we can even do something like this, the 3 arrows. This is a common example. So here the bottom third would have a down red arrow. The top third have up green arrows, and then the middle values have a sideways yellow arrow. So we can have icons associated with it. We can do all sorts of stuff with this. I mean, we can go to highlight cell rules, and we have all sorts of stuff in here. Duplicate values, text that contains something equals to top 10, bottom 10. We can create our new rules if we wanted to. I mean, there's a whole lot of options here you can play with. So you can just kind of decide what do you want your formatting to be when your cells have particular values.
We can even do sorting for an entire spreadsheet. We've talked before about how we can do sorting and filtering for items in a table, but we can use the same thing for an entire spreadsheet. Now, we don't have little arrow buttons inside the spreadsheet itself in order to do this, so we would need to actually go to the Home tab and then we would find all the options we need in the editing group. So it looks very similar to this image that I have here on the right side. Specifically, we would actually go to this, well, for Office 2013, it's going to be this sort and filter option here. Now, it might be something a little bit different depending on what version of Office you're using. But the whole point here is you would select the cell range that you want to sort, and then you would click on the sort icon or even the sort and filter depending on your version of Office, and then you can choose your sorting options. So there'll be a drop-down menu with the options that you want. So you can do largest to smallest, you can sort by smallest to largest, you can even sort by a particular column or even a set of columns. For filtering, it's also found in pretty much the exact same spot. It's found in the editing group of the Home tab. So if we want to filter specific rows in our spreadsheet, we would just simply select the cell range that we want, and then click on Filter under the Sort and Filter button that we had from before. So we would have a small arrow that would appear in that option, and now we can just choose which values we want to view and which ones we want to hide. And this works just like the filtering options in our table, except now we're not dealing with just a table, a portion of the spreadsheet. We're now dealing with being able to filter the entire spreadsheet itself. So we can choose which rows we want to appear. And then with this, we can even sort using this particular option.